Mr. President, it's been a disappointing week here in the United States Senate. I started out the week feeling pretty good, pretty optimistic, had a major presentation before the Brookings Institute talking about the enormous potential in this country for energy production, the fact that we are at the highest level of energy production domestically than we have been in 20 years, and what great prospects we have for that. When we're talking about jobs and economic opportunity, it's really one of the bright spots that are out there. Of course, the debate this week has been over unemployment compensation and the extension initially proposed by the President to be a 3-month extension, an emergency extension, a temporary extension. And I was one of 6 Republicans that came together and said, this is an important conversation for us to be having at this particular point in time. As we know, the long-term employment benefits expired December 28th of 2013. It impacted over 1 million Americans around the country. In my home state of Alaska, about 6,500 people lost long-term benefits at the end of the year, and it was kind of one of these cold turkey things. Those that still had eligibility for certain benefits were cut off hard. There was no tapering down. This is hard. Back here in Washington, D.C., we've been living with some pretty cold weather. Well, it's cold weather all the time in Alaska this time of year. It's hard to be out of work. It's expensive to keep your homes heated. It's expensive to live there. And so I recognize that these safety nets that we put in place are important. And they are important that we have discussion and debate and argue and compromise about how we ensure that whether it's long-term employment benefits continue at the right time, that this conversation happens. And so I wanted to have that debate. I wanted the opportunity for full-on amendments to bring up good ideas, whether it's good ideas about reform, perhaps tying benefits to job training, retooling, giving people that opportunity to move forward, whether it was debate about how we pay for it. I think we recognize around here there have been times when we have extended long-term unemployment benefits with an offset, and then there have been times that we have extended it on an emergency basis with no offset. But let's talk about it. Let's debate it. Let's put up some amendments. And so I was part of that group that really thought that we would not only be able to talk, but that we would actually be able to weigh in as members, representing our states, presenting our ideas, speaking for our constituents on these issues that are very important around the country. And usually in a body like the United States Senate, the actions don't happen unless you have an opportunity to vote on things. And so this afternoon, to listen to the majority leader's statement in saying very clearly we weren't going to have any amendments on the Emergency Unemployment Compensation Extension Act. In fact, his words were, we get nowhere with doing amendments. Mr. President, I find that so disturbing. I have only been in the Senate here 10 years, but what I have seen in my 10 years is a change in a process, a change in an institution where we are no longer taking the good ideas from this side and the good ideas from this side through an amendment process, or even from a committee process for that matter, and building better policy based on the good ideas that we all have. Why would we be afraid to vote on amendments? They may take us a little bit longer throughout the day to go through. It disrupts our schedules. Well, you know what? My schedule is to work for the people of Alaska. And if that business isn't conducted here through debate and voting, what is it? What is it? So I was really quite discouraged after the exchange on the floor earlier, where colleagues who have worked hard, I think, to come up with some good proposals, These are not gotcha amendments, as was suggested by the majority leader. I think the senator from Ohio's proposal, a proposal that is actually contained in the president's budget proposal, I think it was absolutely legitimate. So to suggest that it is an amendment without merit is not really fair. And at the end of the day, don't we judge the merit of an amendment, of an idea, of a proposal by presenting it to the body for a vote? So if we truly are at that point, Mr. President, where we're simply not going to amend bills, that we're simply going to vote straight up or down on a bill that has been presented to us, probably not even out of the committee process, but more likely from the majority leader's chambers, that's a tough place for us to be as a body. That's not what this process is all about. The minority leader reminded us yesterday that we can do better. We can do better as an institution, but we sure didn't demonstrate that today. I want to work with my colleagues on the issue of unemployment compensation. I want to be able to recognize that compassion that we show for other Americans who are dealing with great difficulty right now. I want to try to move this country forward with policies that are good and strong and create those jobs. When I started my comments, I talked about energy production being that bright light. Look at what's happening in the state of North Dakota, where, boy, anybody that wants a job can get one. In fact, they can get 2 or 3. They're ground zero in this tight oil revolution. Their unemployment rate was 2.7% last October. Been a lot of back and forth going on about Keystone and its potential for providing direct jobs, direct and indirect induced jobs around the country, 42,000 jobs. Wouldn't that be helpful? You know, when we talk about our opportunities in this country, we need to be putting in place policies that help advance jobs and job creation and the wealth then that comes with it. We can and must be doing more. And one of the areas that we need to address is where this administration, in my view, has seen some real policy failures, and that's in restricting access to federal lands for resource development, blocking and slowing the permitting process. We need to be doing more. And the president has touted the gains that have been made in energy production. But I think it's important to recognize that most of those gains have been on private and state lands. You and I know, Mr. President, that there are enormous resources on our federal lands. Let's access them safely in an environmentally responsible way, but in a way that's going to help our economy, help the job situation in this country. I feel that we can do so much more, and I am hopeful, again, that we will, in this body, in this institution, we'll be able to be working together to solve some of the issues that confront us. But again, I'm disappointed. Now, Mr. President, I did not come to the floor here this evening to talk about the comments that were made earlier on where we are with the amendment process and really not being able to advance an amendment process. But you can tell I care deeply about this institution. I care deeply about our responsibility to govern around here. And I am not convinced that we are governing to the best of our ability. We need to make some changes, and it only comes when we acknowledge that those changes have to come and that cooperation has to come from